Roku has what you need to make your college home away from home feel more like your own. Make your dorm the place to be with Roku TV, or bring a Roku streaming stick to easily access all your favorite free and premium content like iHeartRadio. Stream your favorite playlist with the Roku Vibe Setting Smart Light strips to sync your music to millions of colors and make your dorm feel more like you. Make your dorm the place to be with Roku TVs, streaming players, and smart lights. Head to Roku.com or your favorite retailer to deck out your dorm.
Deciding on what to listen to is hard. Using Zumo to stream music from iHeart 90s radio is easy. Or play iHeart Country or Hip Hop Beats. Your choice, all for free. Stream easy with Zumo Play. Get live and on-demand entertainment with no logins, no signups, no accounts, no hassle. This February, stay in and watch Glory starring Denzel Washington and Matthew Broderick, or the rom-com Breaking All the Rules with Jamie Foxx and Gabrielle Union. All streaming free on Zumo Play. Go to play.zumo.com now. Life is hard. Zumo is easy.
Delve into a world of secrets. The BBC's Global Investigations podcast, breaking major news stories around the world.
A BBC investigation finds that Mohammed Al-Fayed, former owner of Harrods, was accused of raping 5 members of staff.
Mohammed Al-Fayed was like an apex predator.
From the top of British society to the heart of global fashion brands.
The former boss of clothing brand Abercrombie & Fitch is accused of exploiting young men for sex.
Search for World of Secrets wherever you get your BBC podcasts.
This is your What's Wrong with Winning leader fan radio network.
Get off me!
And KFAN.com. 1 minute and 53 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. We welcome you back. It's a Friday Football Beast edition of the program on a calm before the Snownami Friday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Latest forecast, 3 to 6 inches. Is that what you're seeing? Or is it back to 1 to 3? Or is it 4 to 7? Or is it 6 to 10?
National Weather Service has 1 to 3 inches possible tonight, 1 to 3 inches possible tomorrow morning.
So they would be saying 2 to 6 total,
possibly
in that estimate. Boy, they do love to cover their ass, don't they? How about getting? I mean, at least some of the weather terrorists put their asses on the line. Now, then they forget that they went that route and go, well, I didn't say it. Didn't. Remember the dendritic snow controversy? Where
who could forget?
There was no snow, that measurable snow on the ground, but it wasn't the weather terrorists' fault because the conditions were so dry that it snowed, but the snow was so dendritic that it never reached the ground. That was my favorite excuse of all time.
But don't you also always have the alibi? Because none of us know it well enough to just say the system moved. The system moved.
Well, there is that. That's one of the sound bites that we play in one of our opens in a motion picture.
It's wind.
Yeah, called The Weatherman, Nicolas Cage.
It blows all over the place.
Which, of course, goes back to, well, then that's why you don't make forecasts boldly like 8, 9, 10 days out. The assumption is you got a good enough equipment to say the day on a Friday, like the day before.
See what's coming.
It's something is significant is coming.
That's one of my favorite state fair memories ever when we had Belinda Jensen on.
Right.
First of all, I had to run into the grandstand because you guys were talking about the You Go Girl. Remember the You Go Girl?
That's right.
The contraption that allowed women to go to the bathroom in the woods without really having to squat.
In a car.
Anywhere.
It
was basically like a ramp. Mm-hmm. And I had to go buy one.
You had to go find one.
While Belinda was on. Apparently they were in the grandstand, so I ran into the grandstand, find a You Go Girl. But she basically did the Oprah, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, claiming that every other news station did 10-day forecasts.
Yeah, she did.
Which
she
were
hammered
BS.
us. Yeah.
And she goes, and Channel 4 is right behind us, and she's like, they do it. And Fox used to be right across from us. They do it. Channel 5 is over to the left. She did call them out.
It
was awesome.
Yeah.
She goes, they do it, and they do it.
Did she ever get any blowback from that?
Well, she's still working.
That's true.
She's still pretty popular.
I just meant from, the egos in this business are very sensitive.
But they also have short memories because they're all self-absorbed.
And they're all making pretty damn good coins, so what the hell do they care?
At least that generation is.
Well, that's a very good point. My name is Dan Barreiro. I host the program. Guardsy produces, and we will take it all the way till 6:30 tonight. Is that correct?
We're going 6:30.
6:30 on a Friday night. Super Bowl 59 right in front of us on Sunday. All the action on the Fan. There will be a 2-hour edition of Sunday sermons between 9 and 11, and I'm assuming from that point on, even on the radio or on the Fan, there will be endless pregame to the pregame to the pregame coverage, unless there's a hockey game.
No hockey.
Is there a basketball game?
No basketball.
Okay, so there it is.
It's all red on the calendar, which means it's all football.
All Super Bowl all the time. And I could use some help for the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686 right off the top of this very busy program. What is wrong with winning? I, for the life of me, continue to be stunned, gobsmacked, and flummoxed by the rolling of the eyes about the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know how to break it to you people, you whiners. Sports are not just supposed to be about an aesthetic for you that, well, I'm just bored with them or I'm tired of them or I want to see somebody else. It's not really just, I mean, if you strip sports down to its most elementary level, it's not an aesthetic that's supposed to bow to your whims. It's a competition. It's to see who has the best team. We say we want excellence. And yet we whine when excellence is upon us and it is sustainable the way the Kansas City Chiefs have sustained it. Makes no sense to me. I don't know what we want. Do we literally, the only way we're happy is if there's a different champion every year? Is that what counts? Is that, well, that's fine, but football, any sport, doesn't have to play by your rules. The rule is, may the best team win. And don't text me about the officials. We have talked about it. The Chiefs, I think, have gotten some calls, but I also believe I'm not even convinced that if Buffalo had gotten either of the calls that I think they should have gotten, that we know that they were going to win the game. My guess is Mahomes still would have found a way to get it done. They're good. They're not dominant good anymore, but they're good. And if somebody wants to, if people are tired of them, somebody's got to beat them. And to this point, nobody has. Maybe the Eagles will. I think they're capable. I think there's every reason to believe this is going to be a nice little matchup, which, by the way, means it could be a blowout. We've had that happen before, too.
For sure.
Where two, quote-unquote, evenly matched teams, one gets a couple of turnovers, and before you know it, it ends up being a little bit more one-sided. And as I mentioned, we're frauds on this subject, as I've talked about several times over the last few weeks, but perhaps not in as much detail as I want to today, given it's Super Bowl Friday, or Super Bowl Week Friday. We go, oh, they were lucky to get there. They were lucky to win. See what they did the next year? That was fraudulent. So what do we want? I don't know what we want, but I think what we have to understand is you can want whatever you want when you are paying attention to sports and following sports, right? You can have any series of demands, but the only one that matters is who wins, who plays the best. Ultimately, it is a competition more than it is an aesthetic that's supposed to cater to whatever desires you might have on which team is supposed to win. You hate the Eagles, not because you hate the Eagles, but you hate their fans. But that, again, isn't the Eagles players' fault. It's a good team. They just played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. How many years ago was it? 2? 2 years ago. They, too, during the playoffs, haven't been particularly overpowering, but they seemingly have gotten better over the time the playoffs have ensued. And they're a damn good operation. The head coach is a good coach. Nobody believes it because he gets into some controversies and he does some goofy stuff. That's the greatness to me, again, too, of why it makes no sense to be bitter with the Chiefs. Who gets mad at Andy Reid? What does he do? All Andy Reid, in all honesty, when you watch him Super Bowl week, again this year, you know what comes across to me? And I'm sure he feels heat. I'm sure he feels pressure. I'm sure he has his down moments. But mainly it looks like he enjoys the hell out of it all. He loves this thing. And why wouldn't he? He's got the best quarterback of the generation. But regardless, if he's all tied up in knots and tense and bitter and worried and biting off answers to questions, I don't see it. I mean, he even had a comment this week that, basically you have to it's such a marathon. You have to you have to pick and choose and find little victories, little ways to enjoy the whole process. And that maybe he never used to be that way. Maybe he figured that out after leaving the Eagles. I don't know, but he seems to have found that sweet spot. And obviously, it's probably easier for him to not be in a bad mood, given how many games he wins and how many Super Bowls. This is a chance to get, as we said, unprecedented territory, the third in a row. So tell me what's wrong with winning? And don't tell me you just get tired of him because you want someone else to win. That's not the object. That's the sports gods don't care about how bored you are with somebody. They don't give a damn about that. If they did, they'd intercede, and the Chiefs wouldn't be back this year. It would be, let's give the Buffalo Bills a chance. But that's not how life works. That's not how sports works. And I think that should be, the purity of that should be laudable. That no matter what it just seems like, Buffalo, the quarterback's been great. The fans, they really think they deserve a chance. Doesn't matter. In the sports world can you beat them? And the Buffalo Bills were unable to beat them on an afternoon or evening when I thought they were probably going to win the game. That was at least going in. But again, the plays were made that had to be made. And in the end, the Chiefs held on to the ball without Buffalo even getting it back, right?
They did. And that particular game, I don't think there was any questionable. The calls that annoyed people about the Chiefs, or at least me, and we talk about this on Enough Said tonight, is when you're trying to trick the ref.
Or he attracts a penalty.
Get an extra 15 yards, doing all that. That bothers people.
But I don't think he's been doing that nonstop for the last 5 years.
No.
And people have been ripping him for the same thing. I'm just tired of Mahomes. I don't want to see any more of Mahomes. So I think on this show, I don't even know if it was a day you were working. We spent plenty of time on that subject and even said, as a Sunday sermons actually, where we said, you cannot have any quarterback at the college level, which we have talked about before, or the pro level, manipulating the rules that protect them to the degree they have. There needs to be an absolute sea change, even if it comes at the expense of the health of the quarterbacks, as far as I'm concerned. If they're going to play it,
they'll have nobody. Yeah, they'll have nobody to blame but themselves.
And he has done that a couple times. I don't think he's done it like 25 times.
No, but he's doing it now after he's had all this success, and people do get fatigued, so they're looking at it going, you're Patrick Mahomes. Do you really need to do all that? Do you need to go Brad Davidson on the bit? You're Patrick Mahomes. You're supposed to be above that stuff.
Just because they are good doesn't obligate us to like them. Their fans are some of the worst people. The Chiefs fans are some of the worst people? And what is that? But again, what does that mean? Where's the poll that indicates that? What amount of time have you spent with Chiefs fans that mean that you can no longer admire the excellence of the team? Makes no sense. You got to come up with better. And you know what I fear? I think I'm beginning to actually wonder whether that many people do dislike the Chiefs. I think this has become the fashionable thing to say this week.
St. Louis is a good baseball town.
Exactly. You get around the water cooler, it's like, everybody else says, I want to be in with the in-crowd. And they're saying, oh, God, here come the Chiefs again. It's unbelievable.
How many times are they going to show Taylor?
That's it.
Yeah, we'll throw that in the
farm.
The cereal commercial.
No, not the Bummerooski. What's the State Farm? Is it Bummerooski? Yeah, the Bummerooski commercil. Bundlerooski.
Bundlerooski, yeah.
Playing off of the old Bummerooski play. And they're overexposed. But again, to plug our TV show for the third time, which I know the bosses love this.
It's only 3:14.
Yeah. I'm going to be less bothered by accomplished coaches and quarterbacks being overexposed than I am coaches and quarterbacks who've done nothing already getting commercials.
The one Will Levis commercial has really bothered you.
It started to,
The Will Levis commercial really set you off. I don't think anybody else
has ever seen it.
No, I did see it, but only after we talked about it. But that one really set you off.
Somebody's saying, well, no, he means Eagles fans. No, I'm looking at the text. So before you call me a dope, I'm reading from the text. He's talking about Chiefs fans. The Eagles fans, yes, they get hammered all the time, and we get it, but that's still not Philadelphia Eagles team fault. They're still a damn good team.
They could ask him to behave.
I'm looking at the text. It's about the Chiefs in this case. He apparently, maybe a drunken Chiefs fan urinated on him once. I have absolutely no idea, or threw up on him. or something like that. We putting a grand on anybody's hand on a Friday?
We might as well try. Yeah, the fan would love to put a grand in your hand with our National Cash Contest. And the keyword is the team everybody wants to win a Super Bowl, not the Chiefs, the Bills. KFAN.com, keyword Bills.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have supervision, enhanced hearing, extraordinary reflexes, to be, dare we say, superhuman? Well, Roku's new Pro Series TV can't do any of that for you. But with a 4K screen, side-firing speakers, and a blazing fast refresh rate, it'll sure feel like it. Elevate your entertainment using all your favorite apps like iHeart and play all your music, radio, and podcasts with the new Roku Pro Series. Your senses aren't better. Your TV is.
40, he could go, 50, intercepted, and a touchdown to the 10, he will score!
It's time for the Bumper to Bumper award-winning NFL prediction segment on The Fan, brought to you by Continental Diamond. Now, to help you break down this week's games, here's your favorite NFL wonk, Dan Barreiro.
Well, it's always emotional when it's the final prediction segment of a football season that started in September and now will end with Super Bowl number 59 on Sunday in New Orleans, Louisiana. Packers aren't there. Vikings aren't there. Lions aren't there. Bears certainly aren't there. It's the NFC East against the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't even know what division they're in, but it doesn't matter because divisions are meaningless to them. They're about winning championships. Carl Gerbschmidt is indeed finally back with us after skipping his appearance a couple of weeks ago. Do you want to...
If you like it, then you should put a ring on it. Hello?
Hello. Do you want to finally give us the real reason why you skipped the title round?
Why are we singing Beyonce? Oh, because it's country music?
Because it's country music.
That's true.
According to the Grammys.
How many Grammys did she win in the country genre?
I got a couple, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was country.
Well, that song...
I went back and I listened to a lot of it. It doesn't even sound like, but I guess it is.
Well, I don't think that song is considered country. I think she's done at least one country album since. Isn't that correct?
I don't know. I just heard she won Album of the Year and she did won the country thing.
I'm surprised she's never been in the K102 Roadhouse here. We have a lot of good country artists that come through.
What's that?
It's where people come to hang out and listen to music.
And listen to music here, and like the special studios here.
We always put their picture up on the TV screens. It's a big deal. A lot of people wait downstairs. I'm surprised we never got her.
That's a small market to me.
Well, it's not like top 5 market, but it's top 20.
We're doing okay.
Do you want to, like I said, reveal the real reason? You pretended 2 weeks ago you couldn't join because you had a voice problem.
Yeah, I lost my voice.
Yeah, I don't think that's the whole story, though,
I don't think I had COVID, but I had a cold. Yeah. And I lost my voice.
You sure you didn't have shooter's virus?
Well, it was a coincidental in terms of the timing of the whole unfortunate incident.
You mean with Vern and his office ladies in town?
Well, okay, here's number one. If you're referring to the report that somehow myself, was cooperating with the police in the Menominee police in the investigation of what do you call it?
Arson.
Arson of Shooter Shogos. Number one, I wasn't even near it. Okay, I wasn't even near that place. Now, am I saying that Randy and Vern were denying that they were there? No, I'm not denying that. Are we denying the fact that Randy and Vern had a conversation with the guy who's accused? He's allegedly accused. Wait, what is that when you haven't been convicted yet?
Allegedly.
Charged?
Well, she's not
allegedly. What?
Charged but not convicted.
If you're accused, it's not all it is. You don't even have to say the allegedly in front of it. Accused of such and such. Allegedly guilty of something. You could use the word allegedly.
Suspected of.
Mm-hmm. And
but
what exactly?
Guys allegedly a radio show.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So, did Randy and Vernon have a conversation with that guy? And does Randy know him? Yeah, he does. Yeah. But And look, I just, all I know is that yes, Vern was in negotiations to acquire the said property.
Why?
He thought it was a great investment. I told him that in my position as a supervisor in the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, that's not what we refer to as a good look. It's not good for that. But Vern, he's got a mind of his own.
Well, I don't think Vern worries about appearances, does he? Based on what he's involved in. Yeah, but he doesn't.
I worry about it.
Yeah, well, you do. Yeah, but Vern, I think, is.
Well, this is kind of why my wife hopes Vern finds someplace back in California. So. Yeah. Well. But if you were inferring that I had anything to do with it, I absolutely categorically deny having anything to do with it. I mean, the Shooters people apparently didn't want to sell. And let's just hope. We hope that everybody. What do you say when you want something just to go away?
I don't know.
Is that we hope that all concerned parties
cease and desist.
No, that's not right. Have a good life.
Have a good life.
Or something like that. I'm not a PR guy, Dan. Okay, I'm a supervisor. I'm an owner. Okay, I'm not those things. So
okay, all right. It just seems suspicious, the timing.
In custody. As far as I know.
I almost felt like your attorney brother said, "Look, don't get on there because it could get dicey that week. You're better off just come up with an excuse like you've lost your voice." That's what came off to several people who texted in that day.
No, my voice was gone.
Okay.
And you can't prove it wasn't. So.
Is Vern helping any of the now displaced workers find work in any type
or
of
bringing
capacity?
them back to California?
That's what I mean.
Why do you guys think I know everything that's going on?
Wasn't he staying in your basement? Wasn't he in your basement?
I
assume you guys talk shop a little bit.
We're currently at the lake home, my wife and I.
Since when did you get a lake home?
Jordan, we're not living check to check, Jordan, okay? So right now we're at the lake home.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Randy and Vern and his
office
co-workers
ladies
are living at our place.
Have you ever heard of this lake home?
I had not. This is news to me.
16 years of being on this show, I've never heard Carl talk about a lake home.
Well, but if you think about it, the time.
Have you ever talked about your lake home?
I don't have one. I don't have the means.
Well, don't be jealous.
Well, no, it's not something. The timing is interesting because
early. I've had a lake home for years, Dan.
Well, but let's find out why. Because somebody tweeted.
My wife is like she's like a genius.
My wife.
She gets paid beaucoup bucks from her company. She's a biophysicist and a senior biophysicist. You think those people work for minimum wage?
You sure this doesn't have any?
Sometimes, Dan, my wife just likes to get away from the interactive ice board exhibit, and so we have a lake home.
Can I read a?
It's not like, okay, it's not small, but it's not like, it's not like a mansion or something. It's only got 4 bedrooms.
4-bedroom lake home? That's about as many bedrooms as Lou Nanny's has.
Can I read a tweet that came in about 3 hours ago?
Sure, go ahead, Dan.
This was to you, to me, and to Guardsy. Can we find out truth to the rumor that Elon and Doge stopped the payment of $100 million from USAID to help Packer fans, quote unquote, get laid through a grant to PackerFanConnections.com?
Okay, number one, don't we wish it was $100 million? I mean, yeah, wouldn't that have been nice? I never denied that the government assists in many small businesses, Dan. I mean, it's a few times we've had the opportunity to work with the government for cultural reasons. And, they've been helpful. So, now, did I get $100 million? No, I get $100 million. If I got $100 million, you think I'd be talking to you guys every week?
Well, that's a good point. I guess that's a fatal. But that's not necessarily true because I think you like your little slice of fame here. So I don't think that means you're not capable of having taken money that you really shouldn't be getting, and that
when the government comes to you and says, we are happy to back your project, it's not like you don't sit there and go, well, I don't think you should.
New sheriff in town, Elon, man. I would be terrified of Musk coming after you, man. He is unsparing.
Good luck. The money's spent already.
Well,
look, if you want to, we are not scheduled for further payments. So it's like,
that works out.
You can look into us.
Yeah.
We did have a guy, actually it was a kid, who called and was asking some questions about KFANconnections.com, but I thought it was for like a book report because he sounded like a teenager. We're not scheduled to get any more money from the government.
Well,
so I'm fine.
I don't even know if my guess is...
I'm not a federal employee either, so I'm not too worried about taking a buyout.
Well,
although I'd be curious about how big those were.
Pretty big, but what I'm saying is I'm not surprised to find out now that you're not going to... It's like, let's not stay in this thing. We got our dough, and now let's dummy up. I don't necessarily think that is going to protect you from Elon, man. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, be ready. That's all I'm going to tell you.
I think they're more interested. Don't you think that he's just kind of like showing off right now?
No.
And like they're going to cancel a bunch of things that go into the future. They're not going to go back and say, "Hey, pay it all back."
Be careful. That's all I'm going to say. It's interesting timing. That's all. All this stuff's kind of interesting. Here, I thought you were kind of squeaky clean, but I'm beginning to wonder.
I'm 100% squeaky clean.
It's like the third straight time federal money has gone into his pocket.
And how much of that money helped finance that lake home? That's what I think.
Do you even think he had to finance it? Probably just bought it straight up.
In cash, yeah.
Traded it for the land straight up.
One, you would have to prove that it was a business expense to own a lake home.
Mm-hmm.
And our lake home preceded KFANconnections.com by years.
I see.
So that was more around the time when we were doing the dinner theater.
Yeah, which you also got money for. The PPP loans, right?
Culture, Jordan. It's culture.
And you got a lot of things to worry about. I don't think any of it's worth it. You do not want the man on your ass.
Dan, I don't have any men on my ass.
No,
that may be something you're doing, but I'm not doing that.
It's an expression. Get out of the gutter.
You're the one that comes up with the sicky stuff.
That's not really all that sicky. We got to do. Can we do the Super Bowl prediction? Are you ready for it?
Well, that's what I'm here for today, Dan. I'm here to do the Super Bowl prediction.
Is there a Gerby lock?
Get ready for the draft in Green Bay, because the second that this thing is over, it's all about the draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin, lovely Green Bay, Wisconsin. And KFAN Connections will have your tours of everything.
Let me ask you something. Are we doing a Gerby lock of the week, and the winner will receive two tickets to Super Bowl 59?
Don't have that, unfortunately. Don't have that.
That'd have been a hell of a prize.
Maybe Gerby could kick in.
How about can we get tickets to see Beyonce do country music?
Well,
at the K102 Roadhouse?
First of all,
we could talk to people.
On the basis of all the PPP money you've gotten, I'm assuming you actually could finance a couple people going down and scalping a ticket late at the bowl. Why don't you help out that way?
Well, Dan, why don't you take that out of your hefty salary?
Well, because you're Gerby. You're the guy. You're the man.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting government. I'm not getting government money like you. Free government money like you are. You're abusing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not got free government money in almost a year.
How much? If you had to guesstimate the grand total, all the monies that
I don't think it's appropriate to brag about these things.
Is it in the tens of thousands of dollars or the hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Well, I don't feel like I need to answer this question.
It's probably more than
closer
that.
If you'd like to discuss it or see the books, I'm sure we can arrange that.
Yeah, well.
What lake are you guys on?
I'm not really obliged to. I'm sure that it's in some book somewhere. And if Elon Musk is looking for stuff, then maybe, I don't know. But we're not, like, doing weird stuff with that.
What lake are you guys on, Gerby?
I don't feel like telling you, Jordan.
He's afraid. Security issues. Yeah.
Well, that's... I actually don't blame. I actually understand that.
I told you because I don't need Look,
you don't need Vikings rubes.
My wife does not want to be dragged into this whole radio thing. She's not interested in being a radio star.
I just feel bad for her, period. I mean, having any kind of relationship to you.
Oh, she's not complaining, Dan, okay?
Oh, God. Here we go.
We're doing that again?
She's not complaining. I know. You're a swordsman. We know that.
Well, why do you feel bad for her? There's no reason to feel bad for her.
Just because there's this stench now regarding, all this money.
What are you talking about?
No, it's this.
Randy's got the issue.
The money enough. Let's get to the ball game. Postseason.
Yeah, you guys are sickies, not me.
Guardsy leads going into this game with a 7-5 postseason record. I am 6-6. Gerby is also 6-6. And Super Bowl 59 matches the Chiefs favored by 1.5 points. That's the line we're going with over the Philadelphia Eagles. I've gone back and forth. I picked the Chiefs to lose to Buffalo. Then I feel like an idiot, like everybody does when they pick against the Chiefs. But then I say, well, am I overreacting if I then say, well, I'm not going to pick against the Chiefs until they lose? But I guess now that's what I'm going to resort to. I'm not going to pick against the Chiefs unless they lose, or until they lose, I should say. So I'll pick the Chiefs to win, and to cover the 1.5. Gerby?
Here's the thing is, I think that most of America doesn't care at all. I think that outside of Kansas City and Philadelphia, that nobody really kind of cares. But everybody's going to watch the game. Why? Because it's 5 hours we get to eat. We get to eat and eat and eat, and nobody yells at us. Nobody says you've had too many snacks, Carl.
Do you get that a lot?
Drink, Carl.
Do you get that a lot?
Why don't you sit down and shut up, Carl? They don't say those things during the Super Bowl. So I think that's why everybody's going to watch the game. And then everybody will try to figure, well, I should probably bet on this thing because otherwise I'm not going to care. And so I think what you have to do is kind of go with Taylor Swift. You kind of Taylor Swift has got a lot of money, and she kind of always gets what she wants.
So you think she's going to influence the outcome somehow?
I think that in some fashion, just her aura.
Okay.
I don't think she won any Grammys, by the way. Maybe she should do more country music with Beyonce.
I think she's got enough Grammys.
That'd be a good combo platter, I'll say that.
It would.
Speaking of collaboration.
Kanye might not like it.
That's true.
Yeah. I think that and then I think that at the end of it all, he proposes to her. They both go off and have babies and a family. America is happy. Everybody's all good and everything's okay in the country. And then we can get on to the draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is coming up this summer.
Is that your lock of the week? Taylor proposes, or what's his name? Travis proposes to Taylor?
Yeah, I can't predict that. I'm sure that when it happens, there'll be an elaborate ceremony with lots of different camera angles.
Can I ask a question that you might find offensive?
Well, what's new, Dan?
Is your town big enough to handle the National Football League draft?
Of course it is, Dan.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
What do you think was involved?
Well, it's kind of a one-horse town, let's be honest.
It's quaint and Midwestern.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's what you can go with. That too.
Boring.
That sounds pretty much like a one-horse town definition.
No, it says this people who live in Minnesota. Oh, it's so exciting.
We're special. Yeah.
There's a giant spoon with a cherry in the middle of it. Boy, that sure is a real cultural.
There's a blue rooster, too. Maybe purple.
Yeah, boy, it's the sculpture capital of the world, isn't it? Let's all go to Minnesota and look at the big spoon with the cherry in it.
Oh, my goodness.
That's stupid.
They do a lot of prom pictures there.
Guardsy, what do you think? What do you guys? So you're taking Kansas City, Gerby, is that correct?
Yeah.
And it sounds like we're all in agreement.
Yeah, I think I have
annoying,
to.
So you're protecting your lead.
Do you want me to take I'll take the Eagles if we want to have a three-way tie. I'll play. Nothing's at stake.
No, go with your gut.
I just think, again, I think the Chiefs they're going to find a way to figure it out. I hope it's a great game. I think it's going to be a great game.
What if Mahomes announces his retirement after the game? Sandy Koufax retired on top.
He's like 27 or something like that. He's not going to retire.
29. I think
how about this for a storyline?
Still young.
Yeah, I know, but maybe he shocks the world and says, you know what, just because I'm supposed to keep playing, I'm done. I've had enough. I've conquered
What the hell else is he going to do? He's got no personality.
State Farm commercials.
What if Patrick
You
Mahomes...
don't get the State Farm commercials if you aren't playing. How many commercials does Aaron Rodgers get now? None.
Well, yeah, that's got to do with other issues.
He's got a Netflix series.
He does, that's true.
I haven't watched it and won't.
Yeah, so does The Making a Murderer, too. So, that's not really a thing that makes you
That was like 15 years ago.
That's quite a tortured analogy and old, yeah.
What if Patrick Mahomes gets hurt because he doesn't slide and he's trying to draw a 15-yard penalty and somebody from the Eagles blasts him? He gets hurt. Do you know who their backup quarterback is?
It's kind of funny.
No.
The Chiefs?
Chad Henne?
No, he used to be.
Yeah.
I didn't know this until like 3 days ago when I was on up in Fargo. Carson Wentz.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Is Kansas City's backup quarterback.
Well, they'd lose with him.
Oh, he played for Philadelphia, too.
Exactly. Wentz comes into the game, wins the Super Bowl like Nick Foles did when he replaced Carson Wentz 6-7 years ago whenever the Super Bowl was here at the People's Stadium.
It'd be an interesting twist.
That'd be a good story. Yeah. I think America would get behind that Kansas City Chiefs.
You seem like Hollywood movies.
Have Vern call me.
Do you want me to have Vern give you a call?
Yeah, have Vern give me a call.
Be careful.
Yeah. Who else was going to give Vern a call?
Lots of plots?
Somebody else. I think I have more than Vern.
Yeah.
I think I could come up with a few fresh ideas for Vern. Who else was going to call Vern? Somebody else was going to call him, I thought.
They were?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago.
I don't remember that.
They were looking for work or they had an idea.
Was it Hollywood actor guy?
It wasn't Josh Broughton, no.
Oh, I don't remember that. That could be. I thought,
or we asked if he had a part for
maybe
somebody.
That's what it was.
Oh, no, you were going to.
Oh, that's right.
Carl wanted
you. actually said, that Vern had expressed interest in me for a part. And I said, I'm not interested.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I mean, I know I might be, blowing my big break, but I'm going to be okay, I think, without it.
I'm taking the Chiefs.
Well, I feel kind of bad because of the last one of the season. And I think, even though I won the regular season by quite a bit, I hope you guys have a good summer. If you want to come to the draft in Green Bay, give me a call.
Will Shooters be rebuilt by then?
I'm not, again, Jordan, I have no comment on that particular location.
Is there going to be another location? Sounds like you know something.
I'm not involved at all because I am a supervisor.
Are you going to be like
in the Wisconsin Department of Transportation?
You're going to have like Shooters franchises? Is that what's going to happen?
I am not involved with any sort of gentleman's club.
All right, we got to go. It's been a gas this year. It really has. It's been special. It's been emotional.
I got gas too. I think it was something I ate.
Yeah, it probably was.
Go Pack.
That's Carl Gerbschmidt, ladies and gentlemen. Prediction segment is done for the 2024/25 season, I should say. Ben Goessling in about 1/2 hour. And Lavelle is scheduled for 5:30 right here on The Fan.
What are you looking for in a new smart TV? 4K picture quality? High quality and immersive sound? A sleek design? All of those are givens, but only the new Roku Pro Series has all of those and the Roku streaming experience, an award-winning OS. Get fast, easy access to all your apps like iHeart, where you can stream all your favorite music, radio, and podcasts all day, and regular all-inclusive trips to Roku City. The new Roku Pro Series, a smart TV built by the streaming pros.
Standard Heating and Air Conditioning brings us each and every week this football season Ben Goessling, kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline on this Friday night. Lavelle will join in about 1 hour. You are not covering Super Bowl there in New Orleans. That is confirmed, correct? You had told us that last week. They're still going to play the game. It'll be number 59 on Sunday, as you know. The Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. I do want to get some of your view on that, although I think you were off the hook on the prediction, right? The weekly prediction that you usually do for Vikings games. I think Mark Craig, via the Star Tribune, because he's there, is doing said prediction. So we'll get to that in a minute. Look, I understand. I think there's probably a reluctance for reporters getting on other reporters, right? Because everybody knows, we've all had our moments where we go, we kind of blew that, or I don't want to be holier than thou and act like I never, took a misstep. But I guess I am. I'm getting more worked up on it by the hour. The report from a Detroit Free Press writer that utterly and completely just flat out misrepresented the KOC briefing after he meets with the Jackals, and they're congratulating him on winning the Coach of the Year award. And I guess I'm trying to understand why, in this case, there's not a greater willingness to say, hey, look, upon further review, I think I put two parts of the interview together, and he was actually, when he's talking about championships, KOC was talking about JJ.
Yes.
I think it puts everybody, and then it kind of puts you guys on the defensive here locally, which I assume is why there ended up being a scrum via conference call with the head coach to try to clear the air. Is that correct? Give us the sequence.
Yeah, so I saw it on Twitter last night. Kevin O'Connell's talking to reporters in New Orleans when he gets the Coach of the Year award, talking in NFL honors. They bring him in for a few questions. It's pretty quick. There was not video of it initially,
right.
And the reporter, Dave Burkett, who's covered the Lions for a long time, is a Hall of Fame voter. He's down there covering Hall of Fame stuff, covering the Super Bowl, and tweeted out the quote. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, Dave is really good at what he does and really reliable. So I'm thinking, okay, this must be something that I can take at face value, which is, I think, how just about everybody on the beat saw it and went along with it. And then I don't quite know where it became obvious that it was a misstep. I don't know if the press conference was on TV. I mean, NFL honors was still going on, and we were kind of waiting on a local conference call. We were supposed to get O'Connell and then Jared Allen to go into the Hall of Fame. All of this stuff is kind of happening at once. And O'Connell gets on with us, talks about Coach of the Year, and then I think Seifert asked him about this quote, and that's when O'Connell said, well, that's not 100% right. I was talking about – he didn't directly say I was talking about Jefferson in the quote, but if you go back and watch the video, it's obvious that he was talking about Justin Jefferson, not Sam Darnold. So, and then O'Connell kind of went back to the things that he said about he's earned the right to be a free agent, and we love him, and all of this kind of stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I have been in those settings a couple of times, and everything's flying at you awfully quickly.
Yeah.
And not to say that this excuses any of it, but I don't know that everybody who was there got a full sense of the quote. He might have been kind of doing a flyby and saying, oh, he must have been talking about Darnold. And I would think that when there's been as much reaction to it as there's been, it would kind of lead you to say, okay, I should probably figure this out. But I think a lot of it was things just flying really fast. And, it certainly was a mistake and one that needs to be corrected. But I know Dave awfully well, and I don't think there was anything nefarious. There was no oh, Dan Campbell didn't win Coach of the Year. Right. I'm having some vendetta. I've seen some of that stuff on social media, and I'm pretty confident that's not what it was about. No,
we actually kidded about that, but it was pretty clear we were kidding about, the possibility that, it's a White House or like a Watergate era plumber's dirty tricks campain.
I saw a lot of that from fans last night too.
Yeah. But to be honest, the reason I'm not totally blaming, I guess better way to put it, I'm not totally surprised that in a conspiracy world, fans don't resort to that or start wondering about that when he does such a bad job of explaining it. In fact, so badly that when some fan called him a bozo, he said, why? They apparently don't like the KOC supporting his quarterback. Well, that's not the issue. That you're changing the subject. The issue is whether you misrepresented a step taken by the head coach that seemed to indicate largely that he's coming back, man, and we're going to find a way to bring him back, which ultimately might happen, but that's very different than what was said in that environment. It's just, it's very curious and very strange that at some point you just don't go, look, I was blowing by. I put a couple things together, but let me just, you don't even have to kill yourself, but just correct the record and say, here's the deal. It should not be that difficult. And the fact that he's that cavalier about it, I guess falls into the classification of he doesn't care because he covers the Lions and he thinks, why am I going to worry about some angry Vikings fans? Well, he shouldn't be worried about angry Vikings fans. He should be worried about what he ended up doing to media members needlessly and having to chase a story that was absolutely 100% not a story.
Yeah, you're right. And I think my sense of it has been that he may not have a full realization of the mistake and that the quote was in fact about Jefferson. I would think social media has probably made that fairly clear by this point if he's been on there today. And I don't know if he has. I haven't talked with him about that specifically. But I think it was probably some of that. But, yeah, again, when you see this happening, and I'm sure some of the reaction has gotten to him at this point, you follow up on it, own your mistake. I mean, a lot of this stuff everybody spends so much time kind of inventing some of these narratives and, everybody's out to just make a splash and try to, get a reaction or get headlines and all of these things that reporters kind of get accused of doing. That is not the case. I mean, that's not how people go about the job. But if you don't own your mistakes, if you're not transparent, if you're not willing to be like, yeah, here's how I screwed up, and then you take a little bit of the blowback for it, you do end up, I think, in a bad spot. So transparency when you screw up, as everybody does, I think is an important thing, and we may still get there. But yeah, it has added to a little bit of the spice on this one that I think is probably worthwhile, because it was we've seen now it was definitely a mistake.
Yeah, no question about that. So has the Darnold story in your mind been advanced in any way, in any real way, in any accurate way compared to where we were a week ago? Are there any smoke signals? Are there any, because what I did note when he talked to you guys, could you infer by what he said there, and I'm not proclaiming this, I'm asking this, by what he said during that conversation, that mean that in effect he was saying he's got a chance to find out what the market is. In other words, we're not going to franchise him. Am I reading too much into those comments, or did we already kind of know that, do you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're saying he's earned the right to be a free agent, I mean, that language is very, very similar to what he used with Kirk Cousins last year. And a lot of their approach with Cousins was, okay, here's our offer. You can shop that around and see what the market does to respond to that. And then ultimately, of course, Kirk Cousins leaves. Yeah, I mean, I think you could. There's a line of thinking that I think I could support of getting there. I don't know that O'Connell was saying it in a way that was meant to close that door. I mean, I think you could read those comments and interpret them that way. I think that's completely fair. I'm not sure that O'Connell was trying to rule out the franchise tag by saying it. I think in some ways it's a thing that you say on February 6th, knowing that the franchise tag deadline is still a month away. And I think they will probably have a lot of these conversations about what do we want to do in the weeks to come. And he'll get asked these things again at the Combine in a couple of weeks, and it'll be interesting to see if his answer has changed any to that point. But, yeah, I mean, if he is going to take it to free agency, I think, he's going to have a market, I would expect. And I think the best way for them to ensure that they're in charge of it would be to put the tag on him. So, it's going to be interesting to see how these next few weeks go on that front, and I think a lot of this is probably still to be determined.
We are chatting with Ben Goessling. It is, of course, Super Bowl week. The Vikings, the fan has learned, will not be playing. The Chiefs and the Eagles will be playing, and we're chatting with Ben about any Vikings news worth covering, and also some things about this Super Bowl week. Before we get to anything else you think is newsworthy that's changed regarding the team, the Jared Allen news, refresh my memory on how many years he's been up for this thing, and whether the handwriting was that it was going to come his way, or that there was any element of surprise that he did break through this time.
Well, I think this was his 5th year where he was eligible for it, if I'm not mistaken. And it did seem like it was moving toward the possibility of him getting in. I mean, and some of this is just from, some of the things Mark will tell us about what it was like in the room, but he seemed to think, and Mark Craig has the Hall of Fame vote in our market, so he's in those deliberations, and he has a kind of a behind the scenes thing on it today, which was pretty interesting. I think it was an 18-minute discussion or something like that on Jared this time around, but there has been, I think, more of a growing sentiment that he was Hall of Fame worthy, and it's noteworthy this year because the class was smaller. I mean, they only let 4 people in this year when it's been 6 or 7, I think a lot of recent years, but it did seem like it was more likely that it was going to happen for him this year. And I think it's deserved. I covered him his last 2 years with the Vikings, I believe, and still was playing at an awfully high level at that point, probably not quite at the peak of what we saw, but I can remember watching a lot of those games when he was just terrorizing the Packers, especially that year that Favre beat Rodgers twice. I mean, those games were made about Favre versus Rodgers, but in a lot of ways, that first game especially turned because of Jared Allen and the fact that he was unblockable. And there were a lot of games, I think, in that era that the Vikings were as dominant as they were on that front. I mean, you had the Williams wall, yes, and you had good pass rushing with Ray Edwards and Brian Robinson on the other side, but Jared was playing at a level that was as important to that group as anything you would find on that front. And I think it's deserved that he's going in, and certainly the Vikings and the ways that his career, the ways that his life, he's talked about this quite a bit, the ways that his life changed in Minnesota.
Yeah, it did.
He's going to be a big part of it, and I'm sure his induction speech will be entertaining. I think it'll be pretty colorful, and I'm sure he will have a lot of fond memories to share from Minnesota when he is inducted this summer.
Well, I do remember, when that trade was consummated, and I do remember all of us going, well, he's talented. Obviously, we all understood what he might represent to the team. That's a rare talent, even then, in terms of having an outside pass rusher. But it was, okay, he's got some issues. As he learned his lesson, is the team sending the wrong statement, sort of, quote-unquote, looking the other way? But as far as I know, and you can speak to this better than me, as far as any of us know, he cleaned that up, and he figured some important things out in his life, and it ended up, here in that regard, on a personal level, being very much a success story.
Yes, it did. There's no doubt about that. And he was one of the players that I remember when Leslie Frazier got fired. Obviously, Leslie Frazier was the head coach that in Jared's last 3.5 years in Minnesota, but his defensive coordinator really from the beginning. I mean, Jared was one of the people in the locker room the day that Leslie Frazier got fired that talked about, hey, he helped me clean a lot of this up. He helped me understand that my relationship with alcohol needed to change and I needed to just live differently. And so you heard a lot of things. I think there were some other people that helped with that in Jared's case too, but you heard a lot of things that I remember that day, I guess 12 years ago or so, or whatever it was, that was pretty instrumental in his development as a person. And just, you have to be able to handle those things as a person off the field to continue your career as successfully as he did on the field. And I think a lot of that for him in Minnesota was why he's standing where he is, because he continued to be awfully productive, but he also figured out how to handle all of the life that comes with being a successful professional athlete and how to do it in a way that was frankly different than what he'd been doing before.
The Super Bowl, as we said, is certainly on paper looks like an entertaining matchup and a close matchup. The spread last I saw was 1.5 points, I think.
Yeah.
So give me a sense of what you think it's fair to expect in this game. I had Billick on a couple of days ago, and Billick did the usual. He said, there's a part of me that says, I can name 9 things where the Chiefs are vulnerable, but then there's Mahomes, and they've got a problem with this, but then there's Mahomes. And yet, ultimately, he picked the Eagles to win. It was almost like, I know I may regret it, but for whatever reason, he thinks the Eagles, because of their strength at the line of scrimmage, both offensive line and defensive line, and the Barkley factor, that they might find a way to get this thing done. How do you view it?
Yeah, I mean, when I've been asked to pick it, I've been picking the Chiefs largely because of Mahomes. But I do think this is different. I mean, this one, these two teams played 2 years ago, and it came right down to the end. It was an incredibly entertaining game. I think that was in Arizona, so there was a lot of slipping around on the field in that game, if I remember it right. But that game was right down to the wire in the fourth quarter, and I think came down to a couple of Chiefs red zone series where they're able to convert and score touchdowns. But Barkley doing what he's done, I think, does change the matchup. I think that is going to be a lot for the Chiefs to handle because of how dynamic he's been and because of how much the Eagles can rely on both him and Jalen Hurts to just control the game. I mean, you can do a lot with those two guys to say, we're going to beat you up. We are going to keep your offense off the field. We're going to be able to do what we want to do. And then when you get on the field, you're either playing from behind or you're not working with as much time to extend drives as you might want to have. I think all of those things can have a pretty major impact on the flow of a game. I mean, it's all of the reasons that we talk about when people advocate for the running game. It's not just about scoring 45 points a game. It's about the impact it has keeping your defense fresh, keeping their offense out of the rhythm that they'd like to get in. So I think Barkley being part of that with a team that has been pretty committed to the run with the running backs and Hurts over the years, it's a significant weapon. And I think if the Chiefs are going to win this game, they're going to have an answer for that, because Barkley is, his NFL Offensive Player of the Year, had one of those seasons that is like few in NFL history at the running back position. And if the Eagles win it, I expect he'll have a large say in how they get there.
Yeah, Echo, that's all very fair to say. And I think it is a terrific matchup. That's why I'm as curious as anybody to see. Because to me, that is really the story of it, is that despite all you laid out, are the Chiefs so good or so resourceful at the right time, and is Mahomes so good that he renders it all meaningless, right? That he, in his own way, he makes a couple of plays, and you go, well, that's it. That's why he is who he is. Your compadre Mark Craig had a great stat today laying out, Mahomes is no longer as pure a running quarterback, or doesn't do it as often as a lot of guys, right? And start to finish. But as he points out, his Super Bowl, for example, his Super Bowl numbers as a runner at the right time, I think he wrote 13 first downs, and many times with more than like 7 or 8 yards to go. And again, sneaky plays that give them 4 more downs, extends the possession. And you wonder if in the end he's going to be able to do that again at the right time, because he has along this particular playoff route as well. He clearly doesn't want to do that much of it anymore, but he's so resourceful at doing it. And you wonder if that ends up, again, being the X factor, or the Eagles can figure out, because they got obviously very good defensive coaches, some sort of antidote to dealing with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, a lot of those plays that he makes are not going to be on highlight films. They're not going to shape the narratives of how the game went. But if it's 3rd and 8 and you scramble 9 yards for a first down in the middle of a drive that leads to a touchdown or leads to points, otherwise it would have been a punt. I mean, those are the types of plays that make the difference in games in general, and certainly in championship games, and certainly in close championship games, which I expect this one will be. So, yes, I think he's still able to do it in the sense of he can find the holes to do it. I think he's quick to take off and understand where to go. He's not going to be running around like, Lamar Jackson or anybody like that. Right. But I think it's an important weapon for them, and I think he will probably be able to find a way to make some of these plays to do it. Yeah, the Eagles being able to handle that is going to be a big part of this. The other piece of it that I'm fascinated to watch is Steve Spagnuolo. I mean, that guy has done as impressive a job over the long haul of continuing to find ways to get to quarterbacks with different types of pressure, different types of coverages as anybody in the NFL. And they did a number on Jalen Hurts a couple of years ago. Are they able to do that again when Barkley is there? I'm interested to watch all of the X's and O's with that as well. I think it's going to, it's one of those games that everybody, and I initially was like this too, of, well, okay, it's these two teams again. We've seen them a lot, but they'll play, I think, a compelling game. And when you've got the idea of the Chiefs trying to do something that's never been done, we may be sick of the Chiefs. I get that, but it's also fun to watch history. It's fun to watch things that have never happened before. So that component of it makes it, I think, a pretty compelling matchup too.
I don't think there's any question about that part of it. We were talking earlier about Andy Reid is interesting to me, because obviously in a league that's gone more and more to these young, with it and wow, BMI heavy coaches who are just like in perfect shape. You get Andy Reid, who doesn't play that part, doesn't seem all that interested in pursuing that particular line. And beyond that, what strikes me, maybe he just hides it better. He never seems tight to me. And maybe if you have Mahomes, you don't have to be. But nevertheless, even if you have a great quarterback, there are other coaches that you feel like, okay, they are tightening up here. And I don't know if now he feels like he's playing with house money, because obviously his reputation is gold. I mean, if he doesn't do another thing, if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, he's not going to get ripped, I don't think. So what's the Andy Reid secret to serenity? Because it does seem like he's got that going for him.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it does seem like he's got a pretty good handle on how to go through all of it. And some of that may be he's been in this spot an awful lot. I mean, this is the 5th time he's been in a Super Bowl with the Chiefs. Yes, I think he was in 2 with the Eagles as the head coach. They played in I don't even know how many NFC Championship games, probably I think they lost 2 or 3 in a row before they finally got to a Super Bowl. And then even going back to that Mike Holmgren staff in Green Bay, I think he was on a couple of Super Bowl teams there. So the number of times he has been in these types of spots, just looking at it now, 5 NFC title games in Philly, and then he's had 7 in a row in AFC title games in Kansas City. So it does probably get to a point where you have been through this enough. As much as you can ever say, hey, it's just another Sunday, I don't know that you can in the Super Bowl when you're playing for those kinds of things, especially playing for the first three-peat in all of it being done entirely in the Super Bowl era. I think the Packers, 2 of the 3 were Super Bowls, but this would be unique and distinct in the Super Bowl era. I don't know how you could just kind of be like, yeah, well, it's a normal day, but this level of experience, this level of familiarity with this scene and this level of pressure, I suppose, does help, and just it makes it a little easier to approach each one of these things as its own entity rather than making it bigger than it needs to be.
Everybody wants us. I've gotten several emails about Myles Garrett each day since he made his announcement that he wants out. I'm guessing every team is saying, hey, let's go get him. I'm assuming it's easier said than done. What do you make of that story and any potential Vikings connection to it?
Well, I mean, I think it's certainly easier said than done because the Browns are still, I'm sure, going to say, hey, that's great, but let's try to work it out and let's try to get some things figured out. When you have a pass rusher of that magnitude, you don't just give those guys away. And if you're going to do it, it's going to cost a lot in a trade with whoever wants to do it. I guess the one thing I would say on the Vikings perspective of this is Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Andrew Berry, the Browns GM, are very, very close. And Kwesi obviously worked for Andrew Berry in Cleveland before he came to Minnesota. Kevin Stefanski obviously has a lot of connections to the Vikings as well. And the Browns have a lot of cap things to figure out with all of the Deshaun Watson things and everything to go there. So if the Browns did decide to do it and the Vikings were interested enough to spend what it would take to get him here, I do think the fact that those two have done business together before is not it's not a disadvantage to the Vikings. And I don't know if they're going to go try to pursue him. I don't know if they would put that at the top of the priority list. I certainly think a guy like that, if you can get him, you find a way to go after him. But if they did decide to do it, I think that relationship and that level of trust between the two of them to find a deal and probably to think the same way about it in a lot of ways does help if the Vikings do decide to chase him.
Dave Burkett just tweeted that Kevin O'Connell said their goal is to win a championship, and Myles Garrett is going to be a big part of that.
Boy.
I don't know if you want to factor that into any reporting. So I know it's Friday night, Ben, but maybe go chase that in New Orleans.
We thought that's what he heard.
Yeah.
I mean, he was walking by. It's in a hurry.
And honestly, I was just doom scrolling while you guys were talking. Right. I might have missed it, too, because now I'm on a completely different algorithm. But Burkett is on it, and he's the 4-time Michigan Sports Writer of the Year.
Yeah, great reputation. But unfortunately now, he might become a bit here on the bumper.
We probably should, just for clarification, so we don't get accused of this, because people might be hopping in their car right now. No, that tweet did not happen. That's a joke.
That's called satire.
From about 20 minutes ago.
A callback regarding the real tweets from Burkett on the
I don't want to get aggregated on Florio.
Thank you, my friend. We'll be in touch.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Dan.
That is Ben Goessling, brought to you by our good friends at Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. Lavelle in a half hour. The top 5 at 5 will include what?
Kevin O'Connell, Jared Allen, and are the Minnesota Timberwolves good standing pat?
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have supervision, enhanced hearing, extraordinary reflexes, to be, dare we say, superhuman? Well, Roku's new Pro Series TV can't do any of that for you. But with a 4K screen, side-firing speakers, and a blazing fast refresh rate, it'll sure feel like it. Elevate your entertainment using all your favorite apps like iHeart and play all your music, radio, and podcasts with the new Roku Pro Series. Your senses aren't better. Your TV is.
Deciding on what to listen to is hard. Using Zumo to stream music from iHeart 90s Radio is easy. Or play iHeart Country or Hip Hop Beats. Your choice, all for free. Stream easy with Zumo Play. Get live and on-demand entertainment with no logins, no signups, no accounts, no hassle. This February, stay in and watch Glory starring Denzel Washington and Matthew Broderick, or the rom-com Breaking All the Rules with Jamie Foxx and Gabrielle Union. All streaming free on Zumo Play. Go to play.zumo.com now. Life is hard. Zumo is easy.
Delve into a world of secrets. The BBC's Global Investigations podcast, breaking major news stories around the world.
A BBC investigation finds that Mohammed Al-Fayed, former owner of Harrods, was accused of raping 5 members of staff.
Mohammed Al-Fayed was like an apex predator.
From the top of British society to the heart of global fashion brands.
The former boss of clothing brand Abercrombie & Fitch is accused of exploiting young men for sex.
Search for World of Secrets wherever you get your BBC podcasts.